Hey guys, this is Thomas over here at nursemoneytalk.com. And as many of you guys know, I am in an RN to DMP program. And so I wanted to take this video to talk about um, just in what situation might it be a good idea for you to move from, where you're at um, to specifically like an MSN. Like I'm actually going to leave the DMP part out of it. I might make another video talking specifically about the DMP part, but let's talk specifically about the masters. What situation might it be a good idea to consider and then maybe even finally take that step and, shell out the money and then advance to a master's of science in nursing. But before I get into that, if you're not already subscribed, I want to go ahead and invite you to hit that subscribe button on this channel. I talk about all things related to nursing student, and of course, nurse life. One other thing I'll mention is that if by any part of this you decide that you do want to get your master's in nursing, check out the school search page on Nurse Money Talk by going to nursemoneytalk.com/schools to, find a nursing program that, whether you're looking for an in-class, a hybrid, or an online only. So definitely check that out. That's nursemoneytalk.com/schools. Link will also be in the descriptions below. So let's go ahead and get started. It's a hard choice. It truly is a hard choice to kind of make the step and decide to actually go get your master's. I think that you can have certain people who they just want their master's like right out of the gate. It's like a point of achievement. It's a point of pride. I've worked with plenty of nurses who worked the floor, never really planned on doing anything with the masters, really. They just wanted it. They wanted to be able to say that they had their masters in nursing. They wanted to be able to put that MSN after, after their name, after their RN. And, and if that's you, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Because I think that it's a personal choice, it's a personal thing, and it could be a point of pride, And I think that goes into the first reason that you might consider doing it is you just want it. It's a point of pride, like that you were just proud to be able to say that you have that you have your master's. I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with it all at all. But I think for some other people, like me included, that might not necessarily be enough to take the plunge, right? Like you might not necessarily care that much about that piece of paper. It doesn't mean anything to you. If you were working in med surg nursing, you were making, I don't know, $35 an hour. And for you to go back, get that master's to still be working in med surg making 35 an hour, that's just not going to interest you. And so let me give you some other reasons you might want to consider, getting your master's. A second reason you might want to consider getting your master's in nursing is if you have aspirations to teach, right? So this could be less so from like if you want to do like hospital teaching, but definitely more so if you wanted to do some kind of teaching when it pertains to like academia, when it pertains to actually a nursing program. Because for many institutions, like master's is like the bare minimum. Like even if you're doing clinical adjunct, like you're just the clinical instructor or the clinical staff that's going to be on site for clinicals. That's like that's like a mouthful. For many of those, they're looking for masters. If you have just a BSN or even an ADN, somebody rolls in with a master's, they're gonna automatically get ahead of you, and especially if they're in there with an actually like a DNP or a PhD in nursing. And so this is something to look at. And if you're wanting to move into a faculty, like a true faculty position, you're now having to even go past that master's and look at like a DNP or a PhD, like one of those two terminal degrees. And so that is something to keep in mind because there are some people who they would like to teach, and so even, you know, myself, like I have considered it, once I'm done with the program, I've considered, that teaching might be something I look at doing, if not for just a little bit. The third reason you might want to consider the Master's in Science and Nursing route is if you would like to expand your role, like your clinical role, expand your practice. And of course, you can probably imagine with this that I'm talking more so if you wanted to do the more of the clinical master's route. So like looking at a nurse practitioner, a CNA, nurse midwife, clinical nurse specialist. So one of those routes, those specialties where, or those advanced practice routes where now you expand your role, you expand your capabilities, you now have like prescriptive authority, you now have the ability to do medical diagnosis and whatnot. And so that could be something that interests you, that piques your interest. You just want to take that, take your nursing practice to that next level, if you will. The next reason you might want to consider getting your master's in nursing is if you would like to get into nursing leadership. Now, I'm not talking necessarily just like, I'm not really talking about like a nurse manager or something like that. Typically for positions like that, you can usually get in there with just like a bachelor's or something. But I'm talking about like that next step, like that director position, all the way up to maybe like the CNO, the chief nursing officer. Like those positions, those truly higher level nursing positions typically are going to require like those higher level degrees. And so that's something to think about. Now, of course, the downside to that is, you're typically having to go through middle nursing management and whatnot, just kind of get up there. And that can kind of be a little bit of a pain. But if that is your goal at some point or another, if that is something that interests you, you might have to consider getting your master's in nursing. Before I get to the fifth point, let me just go ahead and mention again real quick about if you're looking at this and all of a sudden you decide, hey, I might want to, get in contact with some schools and possibly consider getting a master's in nursing, make sure to check out nursemoneytalk.com/schools to start looking for schools in your area. So let's keep going with the next point, which is that getting a master's might actually, in certain situations, make you more competitive, right? So this isn't necessarily the case with everything. It kind of depends on what we're talking about. But there are some roles, some specialties, or not really specialties, but some like specialty positions or jobs or whatever, where you having that higher level degree is just going to make you stand out a little bit more, especially if you mix that high level degree and you mix that in with experiences as well, you're going to just stand out more. You just are. And this kind of gets into a little bit with what I mentioned in the last point, which is about that nursing leadership. And even if the role doesn't require a higher level degree, you having that higher level degree is going to make you're just going to stand out in a positive way for it. My last point that I want to mention, and I think this is going to be an important key to a lot of people, is that getting that higher level degree a lot of times can mean that you're going to make more money. Now, before the comments start, let me preface this by saying that this is not necessarily always the case, but it is something that can be true in many situations. So, for example, when I had mentioned that you can get the master's and then you can go to clinical routes, so like your CRNAs, your nurse practitioners and whatnot. So all of those clinical routes that start at like a pay north of six figures typically, as opposed to nursing, which is going to be south of the six figures. And so, so you're going to make more money. The other thing to keep in mind is that in some positions, in some hospital systems, even like if you get your higher level degree, they're going to pay you more money. There are hospitals out there that will put value in like you getting that advanced degree, and they will give you, they'll pay you a premium for it. I think a lot of that just has to do with like their ability to kind of like advertise or some other. I think there's other things related to that, but either way, you can in certain situations actually benefit from having your master's in nursing, even if you're just doing staff nursing. So, for instance, I know that the place that I work at now, if I was to get my master's, I would get paid more for it. I would be doing the exact same thing, but they're going to pay me. They're going to pay me more for it. So that's something to think about. I'm curious, like if you've watched this up until this point, is there something else that I missed? Is there another point that you're thinking of that I didn't mention? Let me know in the comment sections below, especially so other people, who watch this can also be filled in as well. Make sure you hit that thumbs up button if you found this video helpful. It really does help in terms of making sure more people see this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you very soon in that next video.